Nobody wakes up and says, today I'm going to drift away from God. See, that's not how it actually happens. You don't just fall off. You simply drift off. And the crazy part about it is that while you're drifting, it still feels like you're moving forward. So today, I want to expose something that's been quietly working against you. Your blind spots. So the last few weeks, we've talked about the process while waiting on the promise. This week, I want to deal with the thing that can actually pull you out of position even while you're in the process. You see, you can be walking, you could be progressing, you could even be being blessed and still drifting off course. So let's lean in. Let's go to Isaiah 53:6. We're going to do the NIV version. And it reads, "We all like sheep have gone astray. Each of us has turned our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." See, notice what it doesn't say. The scripture, it doesn't say we ran. It doesn't say we rebelled loudly. It simply says we went astray. And that means it was subtle. So let me explain to you how a sheep actually gets lost. See, it finds a real good patch of grass, and then it drops its head, and it locks in on what's right in front of it. And it just keeps moving to the next good patch of grass, from one patch to the next, never realizing that it's actually drifting further away from the flock until that very moment when it lifts its head and everything around it is different. It's alone, it's confused, and it doesn't even know how it got there. See, that's not rebellion. That's preoccupation. And if we're being honest, that's how most of us drift. See, we didn't leave, or we don't leave God or the path that God places us on intentionally. We just shift our focus. We focus on the next opportunity. We focus on the next move, the next relationship, the next family issue, the next thing that made sense for our life. And while our head is down and we're focusing on whatever's going on, we lose our direction. And then when we look up, we're saying, how did I get here? So let me say something that might hit you. You did not go far fast. You went far slowly. Now here's what makes it even more dangerous, right? A sheep's biggest blind spot is directly behind it. So a predator or someone that's locking in on them can literally follow the sheep by simply staying directly behind them in their blind zone. And the sheep stays calm the whole time. Not because the sheep feels safe, but because the sheep doesn't see or is aware of the danger that is surrounding them. And that's where some of us might be right now. We feel comfortable, but it's not because everything is good. In fact, it's because we don't know or see what's tracking us. Now, this is exactly why the shepherd carries a rod. It's not just to fight off wolves, bears, lions, but it's to tap the sheep, to give us a nudge, to give a correction, to give a check. And let's be real, y'all. We don't like those taps. I know I don't. Let me just say, it feels like something's off when we get those taps. It's like something's off, or we just got the advice that we didn't want to hear, or it's that moment when our spirit gets checked. It's that uneasiness that we can't explain, and we often say that it's annoying, but guess what? It's actually protection, because what feels like interruption is actually the shepherd addressing something that we can't even see. See, the scripture says we turn to our own way. Why? Why does it say that? It says that because we trust what we can see. And yeah, we may have experience in certain areas. We have good instincts. So we have good perspective. Or we've even been on the road that we're on before. But here's the problem. A sheep can see wide, right? But it doesn't see death clearly. So what looks safe could actually be a drop. What looks stable could actually be fragile. What feels right can actually be danger. It could be off. But the shepherd, on the other hand, the shepherd's head is never down. The shepherd is always standing up. The shepherd sees further. The shepherd sees clearer. The shepherd sees what's ahead of us before we actually get there. And so now the question becomes, are we trusting what we see, or are we actually trusting who sees more than us? So, since a sheep's vision is limited, the shepherd now has to use his voice. And he uses his voice when the sheep drifts, when the sheep is in danger, when the sheep's direction is off. And that's when the shepherd calls to us. But here's the real tragedy of going astray. It's not that the sheep is actually lost. It's that the sheep has moved out of earshot of the shepherd, because he can't hear the shepherd calling him. And if he can't hear the shepherd calling him, he can't be led. See, when we go too deep in our own way, into our own focus, into our own noise, see, that's when we're actually in trouble. Not because God has stopped speaking, but it's because we're no longer in position to hear him. So this is what I need you to do this week. I need you to lift your head. I need you to pay attention to those taps, those annoying taps. I need you to stop over trusting your perspective. And most importantly, I need you to get back in within earshot of the shepherd, because you don't need perfect vision when you're following a perfect voice. And before you make your next move, before you chase the next opportunity, before you commit yourself to your own way, just ask yourself this simple question. Did I look up? Or am I just moving from patch to patch? Because drifting doesn't feel dangerous until you realize you're alone. If this hits you, then I just want you to drop, I'm looking up, in the comments. And if you know somebody who's been drifting, then send this to them. This is your reminder that you're not too far gone. You just need to get back within earshot of the shepherd. Be blessed.